He records how he removes his shoes and sits amidst the large crowd waiting for Bhagavan's darshan. A young man with the bored face of a stage hand came out of the little room in front of us and placed an alarm clock at the foot of the couch. The crowd seemed almost to suck in its breath, waiting. Then an old man appeared in the doorway. He was naked except for a loin cloth and a cotton cloth thrown over a bulging growth on his left arm. His body was the color of faded leather. His cheeks were sunken, and his lower lip was thrust out in a pout. His eyes were bright with a strange light as he stood there looking at us. Then, with his head falling slightly to the side, he tottered unsteadily to the couch, eased himself aboard, and settled back among the pillows. One by one, the men and women rose and walked to the little gateway in front of the couch and prostrated themselves before the living God. The man beside me relaxed. "See his arm," he whispered. "Cancer." His body soon. A little bewildered at all the veneration from the multitudes, Berrigan tries to figure out what it is in this old man that deserves it. Except for the fact that he seemed to ignore the fact that he was far gone with cancer, he looked like any other kindly old man, not particularly interested in the antics of the younger generation. He reclined on the couch with his strange eyes on us, but apparently not seeing us, his head wagging slightly from palsy. He paid no attention to those who prostrated themselves before him, only occasionally smiling when a mother raised her child for him to bless. At times, he would doze off with his head to one side. Then he would come awake without any transition, pluck at an ear, rub his hand over the stubble that frosted his chin and head, or pick absently at a cloth that covered the blood-stained bandage on his left arm. After watching all this for some time, Berrigan concludes, "I could not see what it was that had drawn thousands upon thousands of men and women from all over India to prostrate themselves at his feet." In spite of this, Berrigan seems impressed. He stays on at least 2 weeks, anticipating the sage's end, perched somewhat like a vulture, waiting to feed on his dying prey. During this period, he had plenty of time to do research for this lengthy 5,000-word article, and, according to his own accounts, spent most of his time talking, arguing with others, and wandering about the hill and ancient temples. We had little time for contemplating the inner realities, so he confesses. In his essay, he furnishes a rather long biographical sketch of the Maharishi with some flippant observations and misconceptions that border on the humorous. For example, after explaining in some detail Bhagavan's death experience as a boy, he throws in, "The young man lost his head completely over the discovery," which may have been appropriate if the word ego was substituted for the word head. And in another place he mentions, Venkatraman was so lost in his trance that for years he had to be spoon fed. Now, isn't that interesting? Of course, Berrigan was a journalist and the story was everything. This being the case, it is easy to imagine how those sincere devotees, absorbed in their sadhana and grieving over the Maharishi's illness, kept a respectful distance from him. Hence, it is obvious from the following quote: he fell into the wrong type of company. The Bhagavan himself became a puppet, a prisoner of his brother, exploited for the benefit of the ashram organization. By this and numerous other dubious observations aimed at the administration, we can conclude that gossiping was for him an ongoing pastime. Somehow, though, it seems he endured to the end. April 14th, 1950. And it is about this end, the end of the Maharishi's bodily life, we obtain a clearer vision by his description of those Madness reached its peak. The fan stopped moving in the little room, and a meteor cut a golden path across the sky and faded out over Sri Arunachala at the moment that Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi breathed his last. As I fought my way toward the little room, I heard Chadwick groan. "He is gone." An American woman fainted and was carried out. A group of Indian women staggered from the room, clinging to one another, their faces drawn with grief. Behind them came the attendants, carrying the body on its couch, pushing through the hysterical crowd into the hall of the temple. There, banked with pillows and drowned in garlands of jasmine, the body that once housed a god sat all night giving monk darshan to the devotees who sat around it singing hymns. Berrigan writes a few more details about the burial procedure and the thousands that passed by to view the Maharishi's dead body. A photo of the body being carried out of the Nirvana room and another of the burial pit are shown. There is another photo taken of Bhagavan a few days before the last day, and also two more photos of devotees outside the Nirvana room. He didn't fail to include one of the Sarvadhikari with a caustic comment below it. In the May 30, 1949 Life magazine, we have the reverential portrayal of an aged holy man, the Maharishi, written with insight and genuine sincerity by Winthrop Sargent. Here, we find something essentially different. Although Darrell Berrigan of the Saturday Evening Post was impressed by the magnitude and pathos of his story, he never quite fathomed the practical value of the Maharishi's teachings and example. He was a writer first and always a storyteller. Nevertheless, unwittingly, Berrigan takes us into the emotional and physical environment of Sri Ramanashramam during the final earthly hours of the Maharishi. Cooking his story and serving us his own special hodgepodge of food, we find some portions of it palatable, and these morsels are sufficient to fill us with the wonder of the event. The research of Kamala Motihar, Geeta Bhatt, and Eric Ford made this article possible. We sincerely thank them.